Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Hangover. This is Dave Schofield from Behind the Steel Curtain coming to you tonight and introducing to you your host. He's number 3 on the screen, but number 1 in your hearts, Bryan Anthony Davis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Steelers Hangover. This is the show that, as always, what we do, we look back on the week that was and figure out what's going on. Can we get over the Steeler and recover, or are we still reveling in great victory? Now, of course, they're in training camp, so there was no game, but that's coming up, my friends. It is, and to discuss it are my two good friends from Behind the Steel Curtain, Tony Defeo and Dave Schofield. Tony, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Bryan. I'm doing great. We're only a few days away from the first preseason game, and can I get over the off season? Yes, I'm officially over it. It was a long off season, and I'm glad it's done. I'm glad we're getting ready to see some real football, kind of.
Kind of is what in Goldfield. Place is going to be rocking. I'm feeling good. Dave Schofield, you usually go to these games, but I'd love to go to this game. Is there any way that I can find it, or are the ones that we were giving away on Behind the Steel Curtain, are they gone?
They are gone. I'm not sure if Jeff has updated that article yet to say that we did get a winner. But I have been responding to every email. I've been that's pretty much been my entire day today, was responding to emails, even if they were just kind of almost like a copy and paste response to people. But I've responded to everyone who entered, and it was. If you don't know what we're talking about, that there was a really nice contest that we ran for 2 tickets to the game Friday that we were able to give away. We'll probably announce a little bit more what's going on with the person that won it. Trust me, the person who won, they are aware of the situation. They're already making their plans. It's a pretty great story, and be looking for that, because it's a really good one that you're going to want to hear about. But I might also be heading up to this game, Bryan, so I might have to meet up with our contest winner while we're up there.
That would be awesome. Partying with Dave Schofield is like partying with Hugh and the Puff. That means anything to any of you, but that is one world-class party. So anyways, so training camp, we're about a week and a half into training camp, almost a week and a half. We've got a game coming up in a few games. They got a chance to rest. But you guys noticed that in the narrative, has it changed? Because the talk all along is that the Pittsburgh Steelers will go ahead and have a new attitude this year without guys like Mr. Big Chest, Mr. Third and Fifth, and Juice, Le'Veon Bell. Now that they are not on this, that is, they're focused, they're ready, they want to prove themselves without these guys. So have you noticed that so far, Dave Schofield?
I have, when it comes to the players. I think you're exactly right, and I think that there's been just a different attitude. Ben says that he is in love with football again. Everyone seems to be having a different approach. You're, as Bryan likes to say, the kumbaya feeling. But you're raising a pretty good question here tonight that I think we should dive into here.
What do you think, Tony? Are you noticing a change with the players on the field? I know Vance McDonald last week said Ben looks hot. He looks. He's not talking about him looking like man sexy or anything. He's talking about this guy just with a reset. He's looking that is just in love with football, like he said, and ready to play some football. So, do you think that it is carried over to all 53 men on the roster?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you saw last week 2 of the nicest guys on the team, Big Al and Cam Hayward. I mean, they had a little scuffle at training camp. These are two leaders, but they mean business this year. I mean, not that they didn't last year and previous years. But yeah, I think that it's a testament to how the whole team is doing. I mean, they're all business, they're focused, and I think they want to prove to everybody that they are a true team and they can move forward despite missing Mr. Big Chest, as you said, and Lev Bell. So yeah, I think as far as the players are concerned, they're more business-like than they've appeared in recent seasons.
Now, when we're talking about more business-like, who do you think specifically has really seen their play? An obvious one for me would be the kicker, Chris Boswell. Hit a 54 in practice on family night. I believe he was 7 or 6 for 6 the first time he kicked the other day. He seems to be back, but we've got to wait till the regular season to know that for sure. But that's got to be something that's really making you feel good, Dave. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. Right now, Boswell has done everything in the preseason that he needs to do in order to retain the job. We talked about it an awful lot the entire offseason about what's going on with Boswell. Is he the kicker? Is he not? I went from thinking it was more likely that he wouldn't be, to where it was more likely that he would be, to a point now where unless he gets injured in the preseason, much like a Sean Sweezum incident. Let me knock on wood here because we don't even want to talk about stuff like that. This is going to be his job. Unless he comes out and just completely tanks in the games in the preseason game situation, because he's given every indication that he's feeling stronger, he's feeling better, he's got it right mentally, and that he is back to 2017 form.
Tony Defeo, was something wrong with Chris Boswell health-wise last year that we just really don't know about? I know towards the end of the year there was some speculation. Then there was speculation that he was a healthy scratch going into Week 17 against Cincinnati. What's your thoughts?
I know he was put on injured reserve. I think he had his brother went on Twitter and said he had a groin injury, but he didn't have that problem in the preseason. He was his old self. And then, he missed that overtime kick in Week 1 and he was never the same after that. So unless he tore unless he had that injury on that kick in overtime, I don't think that was the issue. It might have been towards the end of the year, but that was not I think it was more mental and mechanical than anything else.
Ollie Howard on the live chat is saying that it was a groin tear. That's what's being noticed there. Now, if you don't know and you're not familiar with the live chat, we have it going on here on YouTube. You can go ahead and chime in. If you do have something that is pressing that you want us to answer, feel free to. That's called the Super Chat, and you could go ahead and put some money into the little tip jar, what we call here, the pot, and it all goes towards Tony Defeo and his bar bill down at Froggy's. I don't think Froggy's even
my personal trainer.
Your personal trainer, for the gun show.
Right.
No, but if you do have a pressing, it's something that goes to the administration of the show, and also for contests like the ones that you just saw, that we just talked about a little bit earlier. We had the David DeCastro call last week. We've had the Juju jersey a couple months ago. So there's things like that. So if you do want to join in, feel free to. We have one already in the queue that we will be getting to in a little bit. But who else, Tony, has really impressed you as just upping the ante as far as 2019 goes versus 2018?
I've been hearing a lot of great things about Cam Sutton, about how he's pushing Mike Hilton for the slot position. You're reading stories about Hilton practicing at safety, not that he's going to move there, but, he needs to be position flexible, and I think Cam Sutton already is. I think he's really upped his game. This is year number 3 for him, and as we talked about last week, they've expected a lot from him. He's a heady player. He's a smart player. I think this could be a year that he really takes a leap forward. And somebody else that I've heard a lot of good things about is Matt Filer. I mean, there was talk that Shooks could take his job at right tackle, but everything I've heard from him from camp is it's not going to be an easy task for a second-year guy to do that. So those are two guys that I really feel that are part of the future, and they've at least so far in camp, they've upped their game.
Dave Schofield, what are your thoughts on that? And at safety, are we looking at the possibility of a long rest injury wise for Sean Davis? And could Mike Hilton be spending a lot more time there, giving a lot of room for Cam Sutton to have a very big year number 3?
I think Sean Davis will be back sooner than we think that he could be gone. When it comes to a dislocation is a lot of times when you have a serious injury, when you hear it's a dislocation, it looks disgusting, it sounds gross, but it's not that big of a deal versus a fracture. I had a knee injury at one point that I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to need surgery. I'm going to be laid up over a year. I was actually playing in a basketball game and someone fell on my knee, and I thought I was in trouble. I dislocated my kneecap, and guess what? It popped back in, and I actually the very next week for basketball was just did warm-ups because the doctor says get out and start flexing it. I thought I was going to be laid up for a long time, but a dislocation, although you never want to have anything happen, sometimes it's one of your better diagnoses. So that's why Dante Moncrief has been able to make it back faster, because even though his finger looked disgusting, it was just pop back into place and you just deal with the swelling. I'm hoping there's no fracture or anything involved with Sean Davis. If there's not, he should be back. Um, but that's just a lot of stuff. We got the safety stuff going on. We've got the right tackle job that Tony brought up, which was great because not only that, Matt Filer's been doing great, but Chooks has too. I mean, that's the thing. They're really battling it out. And then the report was when they held Big Al out from stuff, they put Chooks over at left tackle, which tells me he's more in line to be that swing tackle they're having. And they said he looked even better at left tackle than he did at right tackle. So now I don't think he's going to be bumping off, a two-time Pro Bowler right now, but that's just great news when it comes to the offensive line, that even if somebody does get dinged up for part of the season, you've got competent guys that can step in. And with the tight end position being a little bit sketchy with the depth there, you've guys got guys that can come in as that blocking tight end and just use the offensive lineman instead.
Good thought. Tony, I want to go back to Sutton. With you, what are your thoughts? Is this desperation time? Is this zero dark 30 for this guy?
I don't think so yet. I think he showed a little bit last year, but I think if he doesn't up his game this year, then you're gonna have to start wondering if he even has what it takes to be an NFL corner. So yeah, it's not quite to that point yet, because he has had some injury issues, so he hasn't had as much exposure as somebody like an Artie Burns, for example. But I definitely think if he doesn't make that leap this year, then they're going to start having doubts about his ability to do so.
Now, since April, Tony, Dave, we have been talking a long time about the rookies, and some rookies have really been turning heads in camp. And one of them, of course, really needs to turn heads in camp, and his name is Devin Bush. When you trade up 10 picks for him, give away a third next year, it's a pretty big deal. And we know that all along. A lot of people think that he was the real deal. My thought at draft time was, even if he turns out to be a bust, it's still a trade that you make that day, that hour, that minute, because he is that important to what you need. But it seems like he's been backing it up in practice so far. Tony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, everything I've heard, he seems like the speed is there for sure. He's picking things up. They're having him call the plays, which is going to be important, because that tells me that they're going to want him on the field for all three downs. They're talking about him playing dime. He's playing some dime. So is he the real deal? Who knows? We won't find it out until starting Friday. But like you said, it was the right move. He was a guy that they needed for that defense. I mean, without Shazier, that defense was a show of his former self last year, and I'm excited to see what he can do on Friday.
I know where my man crush is on Devin Bush. Dave, 1 to 10, how hard are you crushing on this guy so far?
I'll go 9.5. I mean, come on. The Steelers made the move. They identified their guy. They did what they had to do to go get their guy. And so Steelers Nation's gotta be loving him so far. But you got to remember, we're talking about practice. Practice, man. Not a
Practice.
game. We're talking about practice. And the thing is this: as much as I hate to say it, and it kind of destroys us with what we're trying to do behind the steel curtain. When Lance Williams said we need to stop falling for all the reports out of training camp, he's kind of right, because you really want to know how Devin Bush is doing? Depends on which day you're looking at. That's what you get with every rookie. You can't expect him to go out there and tear it up every day at practice, because there was bad reports about Deontay Johnson. There was great reports about Deontay Johnson. There was bad reports about Justin Lane. There was worse reports about Justin Lane. And there might have been a good one in there or not. I'm not sure. That's just how it's gone with a lot of these, especially the rookies, but it goes across other places. Ali Howard said in the live chat that he said that Dobbs is so far winning the number 2 job. That's probably only looking at practice after they did the 2-minute drill. And in the 2-minute drill, we scored in 3 plays. And when Rudolph ran the 2-minute drill, they stalled. They turned it over on downs at the 4-yard line going in. So, but there was other times earlier in practice where the reports are Dobbs looked terrible. He looked like he was missing open receivers and things like that. But then on a different day, he looks great. Okay, same deal with Devlin Hodges. For a long time, it was like it looks like he's out of his league. Then all of a sudden he comes on strong. It all depends on which day you're looking at. But you know what day is the most important day? Friday, when they go on the field and play their first preseason game. It's okay if you make these mistakes in practice, or if you don't always look the best in practice. And guess what? It's not important if you're making these great plays in practice if it doesn't transfer onto the field. I know it's preseason, but for rookies and guys buried down the depth chart, this is your chance. This is your game chance. Let's see what happens.
You know what? I am so excited for Devin Bush that I've got a Tiger Beat style poster of him. He's wearing a jean jacket and just like he writes XXOO, love Devin. That's how excited I am for this guy to come in. Tony, you remember Tiger Beat. Dave, that might be, you probably don't remember Tiger Beat, Dave, but I'm really excited for this guy. So maybe you'll know the next pop culture reference. We're so excited for this. Dave has been blasting on a loop on YouTube Rebecca Black's Friday over and over and over. Okay, at least he has one.
There we go.
So with that being said, that leads us back to our super chat and Leo Reaver the third. We got to throw in the third here. He asked Devin Bush over under 100 solo tackles, 5 sacks, and 1 interception. Tony, I'll start with you, my man.
Over under on all those stats?
Yeah.
Well, tackles I'll go over. Sacks I'll go under. And the interception, I'm going to go over on that one.
David.
Okay, I was trying to look up some 2018 statistics here quickly,
Here we go.
just to get an idea of like where would 100 tackles put him on the team. That's my question. So as I'm looking that up, I'm going to say with the interceptions, I'm going to say push. I think that's a perfect 1 interception would be what I would project him for his rookie year. For the 5 sacks, I'm going to say under, because I don't know that they're going to be sending him a lot, especially if he's in that dime linebacker. I don't know how much he's going to be blitzing because of his quality coverage skills. I'm not saying there won't, but he might not have as much of an opportunity. I mean, when he's out there on a passing play, a lot of times it makes sense to send someone like Vince Williams, because that's not your strength in coverage. So I am complete. There we go. There's defense and fumbles. I'm trying to find tackles. Where would 100 tackles put him? That would put him 20 more than any Steeler had in 2018. So I'm also going to go under with 100 tackles. I would put him right around, let's go 70 to 75.
Let's go under on the tackles, but not that much under. I would say he's still going to have a significant amount, but he's still going to share some time probably with Mark Barron. He might start all 16 games, or he might not. Or you might see Barron starting all 16. Well, I doubt it, but there's some guys in there. So I think he's going to have a phenomenal rookie year, but he doesn't have to carry with being over 100 tackles with it being a group effort there. He just needs to be a dominant presence. You also need to have good play from Mark Barron as well. And we kind of forget about Mark Barron a lot too. He's very significant to the success of not only Devin Bush, but the entire defense as well. If they could have a nice little platoon going there too, even if it's 60-40, even if it's 70-30, but you have something good, someone in there at all times. With both of them, you have a really good, solid tag team there. So I would say that that's not a bad thing. Now, if he's around 40, then we're panicking. But I don't think he's going to be that much under. Interceptions, I actually think he's going to have more. I like Dave's push idea, but I could see him grabbing 2. That could be a possibility if they are dropping him back. He is that kind of he has a great mix of being able to rush the passer, being able to get the ball carrier, and dropping back in and nabbing some balls too. So let's go with 2.
Brian, I was going to say, you're so wise. You called out my contradiction. I can't say he's not going to get enough sacks because he's going to be in coverage more, and then say he's not going to get enough opportunities to make interceptions. So you are very wise, man. That you are correct.
I got to tell you, I stumbled into that, Dave. I really wasn't. I had no clue I was correcting you.
What do you guys think of the possibility of Barron taking playing time away from Williams? Because I mean, he's have 2 fast linebackers out on the field at the same time. I didn't even consider that, but and the way they're talking about how good they are together at training camp, that might be a possibility we're not even seeing right now.
You know what? That's a possibility as well. Now, Ollie Howard just mentioned that the Barron has missed some practices as well, but that's something they might be tinkering with. So you never know. But I think that would be a great idea, Dave. I would love to see a really speedy middle on that team.
Yes, I like it, as long as they're effective. So. I mean, speed is great, but sometimes too much speed can take you right out of a play. So you got to be under control. And that's why we got to see him on the field in game action. That's what it takes. I mean, we're really going to have something to talk about after this game.
Well, Tony, help me out with this. I know we're the same age, and we're probably both jonesing for 2020 with the new Top Gun. And let's quote Top Gun here. I'll be Maverick, you be Goose, or vice versa. You have more of the Goose hairline. I have more of the Maverick. No, I don't. I'm not even close. But I feel the need. Take it, Tony.
For speed.
There you go. Speed does kill, and like Allie just put in there, speed does kill. So that would be fantastic.
So is it Goose and Maverick? Or is it Ric Flair and Arn Anderson? I can't figure out who you guys are.
We are versatile, my man.
That's right. You can take on any role you need.
Yeah, that's the glory of this dream team, this 1971 dream team. You're 1971, right?
2.
Oh, I'm older than Tony.
The year of the Immaculate Reception.
Wow. So I'm actually 1971. So that's December of 71. So we're probably a little closer. But with that being said, I did not know that I was older than Tony, and I know I'm older than Dave. So I am the elder statesman of the show. So like Ryan O'Toole says, 4 horsemen for life, baby. So I guess I am Ric Flair. Woo! Okay, so here's the thing. We're talking about top rookies. We had one question. And Dave, maybe you can help us out with this. Deontay Johnson. I mean, we've heard some really impressive things from him. And then there's some things that, he still has some learning to do. But we also heard about an injury. Or do we need to be worried about this injury to Deontay Johnson?
I'm a little concerned because I know he got dinged up. Was it rookie minicamp or right into OTAs? He couldn't participate with everything because he was dinged up. Here we are in training camp again, and he's a little dinged up. I'm hoping it's just a little dinged up. Is it concerning? Yes, because you don't want another situation where you have a player that just doesn't come through because they can't get on the field. But at the same time, I was not banking on Deontay Johnson being much of a big part of this team early on this year. So if he's dinged up, the biggest thing is he needs more practice than anything. That's what these rookies need, even the guys that were drafted pretty high. So missing practice is a much bigger deal for a rookie than it is for anybody else.
Tony, what are your thoughts on that? Will he even see the field until week 6?
Deontay Johnson. I mean, it all depends on the nature of the injury. I'm not sure what his latest problem is, but it is a big part of becoming a professional football player. You have to stay healthy. I mean, we saw it with Quiz Golson. He never played in a game. He never even came close to finishing a training camp. So, yeah, I mean, anytime a young guy who's never played in the league has injury issues this early in his career, that's concerning. So, yeah, I'm concerned too. I don't at this point, I don't think he's going to be put on a PUP list, but I guess we'll have to find out. Wait and see what happens on Friday if he plays in that game.
So this is something that I've got to bring up from the live chat. Andrew B is laughing because we are the same age as his dad, and so yeah, I guess I had my son turned 12 yesterday, so I still feel young because of that, but I did start later in life. But yeah, I guess I could possibly be a grandfather soon too, because I have a 26-year-old stepson. So who knows? That might be right around the corner. When people start saying I'm the same age as their grandpa, I am hanging it up. I'll just let you know that right now. As far as everything else goes too, Mark Malott had a great comment on the live chat. Yes, speed is great as long as it's controlled. People tend to forget sometimes Shazier was a misguided missile. So that's a true thing too. Palomalu was sometimes a misguided missile. Thomas Everett, he was a great player. I thought he was going to break his neck so many times back in the early 90s. So yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword with those players that play with speed. Shazier could be mentioned in that breath as a misguided missile, but it's a style of play, Tony.
Yeah, but as far as Barron's concerned, the comforting thing about him is he's a veteran. He's what, 29, 30. So I he played on the Super Bowl team last year. So you would think that he would be able to control his speed at this stage of his career. But last year you saw the difference that no speed in the middle of the defense, how that affected things, especially down the stretch. So, I'm just excited that at least one of the inside linebackers is going to be able to have that sideline speed that they've been lacking since Shazier went down, because they clearly built their entire defense around him, and now that they need a prototype, and hopefully that's Devin Bush, and sooner rather than later.
So, Tony, you're saying that Vince Williams is not a speedster?
No, I mean, I like Vince. I've always been a Vince Williams fan.
He's not fast.
He's not fast, but he could be more effective. I mean, you saw how effective he was as a player when he was playing right beside Shazier, and I mean, when he's in there, he has to be more. It's gonna free him up to do what he did 2 years ago, 8 sacks, things of that nature. So I'm just excited to see what Bush and Barron or both of them at the same time. You're talking about so many different schemes that they can use now, so many different formations that, I mean, I'm a layman. I don't understand a lot of it, but it's certainly not your grandfather's 3-4 defense. That's for sure.
Big Dave, let me ask you this. Did Ryan Shazier get Vince Williams that new contract?
Absolutely. I was so hoping you would ask me a Vince Williams question. Don't sleep on Vince Williams this year. Vince Williams just needed the right kind of linebacker next to him. And now not only does he have one, he's got 2. So could that maybe cut into some of his playing time? Sure. But what I think you're going to see is a very effective Vince Williams this year. I think you're going to be surprised how much he can turn heads because he has that right type of player next to him again. And yes, because he was playing to that with that right type of player before, it showed you what he could do.
Well, we talked about players with new attitudes, the whole team, the kumbaya that I've just been, I might as well get that copyrighted because I've been using that just ad nauseum. By the way, Tony, I saw your quote. I believe it was on Facebook about spelling ad nauseum, if I'm correct on that. So I had to bring that up. But I've been using Team Kumbaya like crazy. I'm glad to see that there were some flared up tensions the other day with Hayward with Villanueva, and they were joking about it afterwards. That's what happens in the heat. That's what happens when you have passion. I have no problem with that. So it's great to be amped up. It's great to have that new attitude and tweaking things and just upping the decibels, upping the intensity. Can that be said for Coach Mike Tomlin? What have we seen so far from Mike Tomlin? And has he upped the intensity? Is he going to change? Is he going to tweak a little bit this year? Are we going to see less with the running backs, running the wheels off running backs? Are we going to see just him upping the ante this year? Is level midnight for Mike Tomlin as well? Dave, let's start with you.
First of all, you've got to remember that you are talking to a former football coach. So I've kind of been there with some of the stuff, nowhere close to the level of these guys, but at least I have an understanding of what it's like to coach football, be in a locker room, and everything else. There is nothing that we have seen from Mike Tomlin this year to make us think that it's going to be any different. But the key part of that phrase is that we have seen, because the biggest role of Mike Tomlin, other than coming out and answering questions at the end of every practice and training camp, which has been fantastic for helping me write some articles, and from him taking, after the game, having to do his press conference, everything. We think that what Mike Tomlin is doing is there on the sidelines. The biggest thing of what Mike Tomlin is doing is in the locker room every day. And we can't see it and we don't know it. But I'm hoping it's different, because by seeing the players be different, you think that that's also got to be a reflection of what's going on with their coach.
You know what, Tony? I have seen. I kind of feel a calm intensity from Mike Tomlin here. I feel like he is up the ante. Where are you on this whole thing? And we're not talking about. And I mentioned threat level midnight. I'm not talking about his job at all. I'm just talking about him upping the ante, knowing that this is a year where everybody was under fire in the off season because of some players leaving. There's been all kinds of talk. You know that this guy's a competitor. He's itching to win. So do you think that he's going to just turn that dial up so much more and maybe do some things he has not done in the past?
Yeah, we talked about the running backs. I mean, Kevin Colbert mentioned that in the offseason about maybe they have to revisit their approach to that. And so that might be one aspect that he changes. He agreed to have a coach that was in charge of challenges, which had to be difficult for him to admit that he wasn't really good at that. It's not, coaches have big egos, and we've seen legendary coaches like Chuck Noll refuse to change. Bill Cowher took him a long time to open up in the playoffs and trust his franchise quarterback when he finally got one. And you saw that pay dividends. They won a Super Bowl with that. So, he mentioned how the departures of Brown and Bell were like a cleansing for the organization, for the locker room. I think that was his way of acknowledging that maybe, the leadership wasn't quite what it needed to be. So I think, and he mentioned how maybe they were talking a little bit too much and they should tamper that down a bit. So I think he has shown some signs that he's willing to change. And, but like Dave said, we can't really see that. But starting with the regular season, we'll finally get to find out some of these answers. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he is in year number 12. Because he's still a relatively young man. So people forget that coaches can improve and they can get better and they can learn. So let's see what happens.
Dave Schofield, is Coach Mike Tomlin a Coach of the Year candidate?
Coach of the Year candidate has everything to do with how the team finishes. You could be the best coach without talent coming in at the beginning, and you can't get there. Or if you make a really big jump. Coach Tomlin is not going to be a Coach of the Year candidate because he's coaching the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you've got to flash to the national media to win that award. And guess what? The Steelers, as an organization, are too good to flash the way that you really have to do. So that's why I'm not saying that he shouldn't be considered, but that's why I think that he wouldn't win it.
So if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they've ever had any Coach of the Years. That might be something for the stat man there. Or it might be one.
I believe no one in '89.
That's a good throw that out there, Tony, because I think you're right that Noel won it at one point, but I'm not sure when.
But I don't think it was for. Yeah, I think it would have been in the '80s, and that '89 team, that was a 9-7 team that did some beautiful things. And gosh, who was it? Mark Stock that dropped a great pass, and then Treadwell for the Broncos doinked one in off the uprights. Gosh. I need to go back and watch that game again too. That was one heck of a game. There were so many chances for that team there too. I think they would have beaten Cleveland, and I think they would have went on to the Super Bowl to play the San Francisco 49ers, who beat the Broncos 55-10. So maybe it's a good thing that they didn't get there. I don't like Bubby's odds against Joe Montana, Roger Taylor, and Jerry Rice that year. But anyways, so that's a great question. We've had some questions coming in on the super chat here, and a lot of them are. Excuse me, not the super chat, on the live chat. And so get your questions in. We'll have some time for a few of them. One of them that we've got a couple times is on who's going to get more carries. Is it going to be Jalen Samuels or Benny Snell Benny Snell Jr.? Excuse me. Tony, what do you think?
Well, I think everybody wants it to be Benny Snell because, he's that prototypical Steeler running back and he runs downhill. Whereas in Samuels is more of a Swiss Army knife kind of a weapon on offense where he could be utilized out of the backfield and he can even play a little bit of tight end. But you mentioned Mike Tomlin and changing, but with if they decide to go more give less carries to Connor, I think they're going to put Samuels in there because he's more of a versatile weapon in the backfield. So I think it's going to be Samuels.
Dave, is Snell going to be active week 1?
Yeah, Snell's going to be active. That's why I keep saying I don't think it matters who's the 2 and the 3 because they dress them both. So I think that we pretty much know who our 3 running backs are, even though there's some other people that occasionally turn heads in camp. We're still talking about practice. That I think that's one of the most set positions that the Steelers have this year of who their 3 are going to be.
Let me ask you this, and it goes back to Mike Tomlin. And this is we're talking about him changing, and we feel like he's going to change with the running backs, especially with this running back situation. But is he going to change his approach to the preseason? Because it has been, Tony and I, something we talked about on the Hangover all of last year was that they really missed out by having Ben, having Mr. Big Chest, having Le'Veon Bell didn't report, but having these starters not playing a lot of football in the preseason. Is that something that we might see some more starters get a little more action especially Ben Roethlisberger this preseason, Dave?
As much as I'd like to see it, because I think that would add to that "Are we ready week 1" equation, I just don't think they're going to change it up. I just think every time I want to say, "Come on, just play the guys a little bit more, play them a little bit more," I think back to holding my newborn son in the hospital and wearing a Marquise Pouncey jersey and watching him go out for the season against the Green Bay Packers. There's just certain guys that you can't allow that to happen to. I do think a lot of the young guys are going to play more because they're young guys. Anyone on a rookie contract, you're going to see them, I think, more than anyone else, except for maybe James Conner, because they've already been holding him back a little bit more. I do think we'll see a little bit more Juju than we will James Conner, but I don't think they're going to change the equation.
You know what? I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings doing a fantasy football draft and watching that game, and I think we were in the 3rd round of my draft, and my draft went to crap. Also, because I also picked Jordy Nelson right before he went out in that game for the season, or something like that, for a long time that season. So my draft went to crap because I was more worried about Marquise Pouncey. So, I guess that's a good point. Tony, do you think that method is a mistake, though?
Yeah, as far as the rust factor, the beginning of the year, I could see the reason for having them play more. But like Dave mentioned, like you mentioned, Marquise Pouncey, I mean, all it takes is one play and your season is shot. And I remember the reactions to Pouncey on the injury on Facebook, and Tomlin didn't care about his team. He wasn't protecting his players, that kind of thing. I mean, it was Facebook, so you're going to have that kind of stuff anyway. But I think these guys are just too afraid of injuries. Every coach to really change in that regard. You're not going to see Ben more than, I'd say, a couple series in the 3rd game. That'd be my guess. As far as the good thing about this current Steelers team is there's a lot of young guys that also happen to be starters. So you're going to still want to get those guys more playing time, even though you're risking their health, their injuries. You're exposing them to injuries. A guy like Terrell Edmonds, for example, he's a starter, but you still want him to play a lot in the preseason. So I think you're going to see some of the younger starters play, but as far as the veterans like DeCastro, Pouncey, Ben, etc., even James Conner, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of playing time from those guys in the preseason.
With that being said, James Conner has not he's been getting the veteran treatment in camp. And I don't think that's that bad of an idea because like Tomlin came out and said, look, we really need to see what we have going with these younger guys. We know that what he can do, but he did score on the goal line during Family Fest. He looks, from the reports, he looks pretty sharp when he's in there, even though he hasn't been in there as much. But he's like, look, and Tomlin had mentioned that these guys will definitely get a chance to sharpen the knives and get a chance to hone their game. I'm just hoping it's enough, because we actually saw Boswooden get a lot of action last year. He signed his contract right before the Green Bay game, and really didn't play until week 3, I think. So, and no one plays in week 4. It's my opinion that you really need to see a little more of some of these guys. We see Tom Brady a lot in the preseason, and that's something that has not hurt that team in almost 20 years. But with that being said, it very well could. But sometimes I think you have to roll the dice and have those guys knock the rust off in real game time. So that's just my opinion there. But that debate could go on forever, and I don't think any of us would be fully wrong. With that being said, if we do you have anything else going on, Tony, that you want to discuss?
I'm just intrigued by a few of the battles that are going to play out in the preseason. Like who's going to be a number 2 tight end? Is it going to be Xavier Grimble? Is it going to be Zach Gentry? I mean, I wouldn't put my money on Gentry, but you never know. And as far and the backup quarterback situation, I think everybody assumes Mason Rudolph is going to be the guy, but has he shown enough in practice at this point to be the guy? And is he going to get a legit chance in the preseason to show that? What I mean by that is he going to start any of these games, or is it going to be Josh Dobbs starting every game, or at least 3 of the games, and then Rudolph coming in? So that these are the things I'm looking forward, and of course Devin Bush and things of that nature when these games start on Friday.
David,
I've got a couple things to clean up here. First of all, when it comes to Coach of the Year awards, if you're looking at the AP Coach of the Year, which dates back to 1957, there has never been a Pittsburgh Steelers coach win Coach of the Year.
That must be what I was thinking of.
If you look at the Sporting News Coach of the Year, that goes back to 1947. There's been 2 times where Pittsburgh Steelers coaches won it, and they were both won by Bill Cowher in 92 and 2004. So there's other things. Coach Tomlin's even won one of these awards, like a Gillette Coach of the Year or something like that. There's all these. There's so many.
Yeah, but he won that with Cowher's players.
Oh, thanks. Let's get them all riled up, Tony. Here we go. So that's just interesting. So that's one point I had. Second point I had, we're talking about the running backs and how we're, and are we going to have a different approach to them and in the regular season? Remember that we have a different running backs coach, and we're not exactly sure why the Steelers made a change because they had a very good running backs coach. So was that part of the issue? Was the workload? Is that going to be different because there's a new coach? Was there just a difference in philosophy there? We don't know what was going on in there. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I want to mention an old comment from the live chat from Russ Obenstein or Obenstein. I'm not sure, but Russ, this is from you. He says, we're going to have such better depth for fresh legs in the fourth quarter to finish off games. And that's a key. There was an article that I wrote that was published today about one of the biggest problems the Steelers had last year was the fourth quarter and their point differential. Under Mike Tomlin, last year was only the 3rd time they had a negative point differential, and it was actually quite sustainable. It was 30. I don't have it right in front of me, do I? I think I might. It was minus 32. And every other time they've had a negative point differential in the fourth quarter, they have not made the playoffs. So now there has been one time they did have a positive point differential when they didn't make the playoffs in 2012. But the biggest reason they had that was there was 2 games they had come from behind wins where they outscored opponents 14-0 and 10-0. So that's a 24-point swing right there in 2 games. But if you can't get that fourth quarter going on, the Steelers did not. They were pretty low. They only scored 91 points for the season in the fourth quarter last year, and they're usually well over 100. I mean, my goodness, they scored 145 points in the fourth quarter in 2015 and 2016, and even more the year before. So they gave up a lot of points in the fourth quarter, and they just really didn't score many points in the fourth quarter. So that was a great point by Russ, and I have rambled on for far too long. So thank you for this platform, Mr. Bryan Anthony Davis.
BAD is good with all of that. With that being said, fellas, one last question for both of you. Tony, you are in the Pittsburgh area. So this is probably more for Dave, for anybody that is outside of the Pittsburgh area. How are we watching this game if we're not at the game?
I'll be watching on KDK. That's where they broadcast all the preseason games. But I think you can see them on the NFL Network, if I'm not mistaken.
That would have to be a feature game. Is it a feature game, Dave?
I'm sorry. I've got to be professional. I've got to unmute myself. Sorry about that. You are correct. That is the feature game of the week. But not only is that a feature game, the week 2 game Saturday against Kansas City is also a featured game. The week 3 game against Tennessee is a Sunday night football game. So we know we've got a lot of people outside the Pittsburgh area in the live chat. We have international people in the live chat. There you go. 3 of the 4 games are nationally televised. We've got NFL Network in week 1, preseason. week 2 preseason, and NBC week 3 of the preseason. I'm loving it, even though I might be at the game. I'm just loving it that I can even tape the game and come back and watch it if I decide to do another father-daughter trip up there this week.
Yes, and it has just been mentioned by Mark Malone. NFL Net usually will do a replay during the week, and that's true. They'll do that all the time. I mean, sometimes they'll put them on at 2 in the morning. You set the DVR for it, but my problem is I need to watch it live, especially when you're doing articles like
knee-jerk reactions.
Dave's plugging me.
We
I was
love them. We love
knee-jerk
them.
reactions. If you don't know what knee-jerk reactions is, it's my real-time assessment of the game. Was just me watching it, and it's basically like being on the couch with me. And I'm sure like 3 people out there would love to sit by me on the couch. Well, actually, 3 beings. They're my dogs, but that's
there's
about
2
it.
of them right here.
I've been next to you. Well, we weren't on the same couch. I was giving you your space to type your knee-jerk reactions, but watching a game with BAD is A-okay.
Oh, hey, thank you very much. And you didn't get the full Steelers Central treatment because of the flood I had last year, which it was temporarily down. Hopefully, it will be back up sometime this season. You'll get a chance to enjoy that. Tony, you're always welcome to make a road trip. We could do the Hangover together.
That'd be awesome.
So it's 3 hours, so it's not that far. You can hang out with Dave and Tony, and even we might get Jefferson, good old Jefferson Hartman, to come out and hang out with us. But
he's
that's
not
unlikely.
leaving his house to watch the first Steeler game. He's not going to do it.
So for some reason, this is great. Ryan O'Toole wants me to stay away from his Doritos. So yeah, I'm actually one that would probably. I'm not afraid to steal the food. I do love to snack during those games. Usually it's Snickers bars, and what was the other thing?
Snickers and hot dogs.
Snickers and hot dogs. Wow. I'm not a hot dog. I'm actually not a big hot dog guy. I'm a burger guy more. But anyways, with that being said, Kathy Forage, she's got to work Friday night, and she's really upset about that. She threw in $5 of her hard working into the super chat. Hard work in the super chat. We will. Here's the good thing about that, Kathy. If you have an opportunity, there will be a live thread on BTSC. If you could go ahead and take a look at your phone. Your friends in the BTSC Nation will be glad to keep you up to date on everything that's going on. That's why you check into BTSC at all times for that. There's so many chances in the middle of the game, during the game, anytime to find out what's going on, Dave.
We not only that, I was told that there will be a post-game show live on YouTube as part of the BTSC family of podcasts after the game Friday night with Jeff Hartman and Lance Williams. That's the rumor. I'll believe it when I see it. If Lance Williams is going to watch a preseason game and then talk about it, but we'll see if that happens. But we are scheduled out, and we did not get to announce our giveaway last Thursday, our new giveaway, which is good because we had the tickets today with the DeCastro football. So we're hoping to announce that this Thursday. So make sure you stay tuned for that. That's going to be a fun, ongoing thing that we're going to do.
Cree Ickes asks, is there a way to watch the games if you don't have NFL Network? There
Game
you go.
Pass.
Game Pass. Yes, that's something Doug Johnson just mentioned, NFL Game Pass. I had trouble with NFL Game Pass last year. I was trying to watch the first preseason game. It was awful.
Kevin said maybe Yahoo. I watched at least 3 games that were regular season games that were streamed live on Yahoo last year. I don't know that they have the rights to the preseason game because of Game Pass. That's a good question to look into.
But then again, everybody knows my connection problems from time to time, so maybe that's why I had a hard time. I ended up listening to it. I had better action listening to it, and then I stayed up late, and I did the best I could with that article. But that's never going to happen again. So now I have a backup plan, and it usually has me knocking on the door of one Jeff Hartman and trying to trying to leech off of him. So that's something that I might possibly do. Russ Obenstein, Russ O. Let's just call him Russ O. Russ O says, no question, just thanks you guys are the best and loves fans and live chat. It's like we're all family. And you know what? We feel that way too. You take your time to go ahead and hang out with us when we do these shows. And these names, they're not new to us. We talk about you offline. And it's funny because there's no venom in these live chats. It's awesome. We are a family that we love the same team. And that's exactly what it is. And we forget about that sometimes in the comment section, sometimes on Facebook, when everybody's like wanting to kill Tony. When Tony's getting threats and Dave's mowing the lawn and has to stop mowing the lawn to clean up that.
Now, Facebook,
Hey, I gave up the community manager role because of my new role with the website. So, Tony, stir the pot all you want to now, brother.
Well, Facebook, there's no filter there. I mean, they come at me from all different directions. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, Facebook's kind of rough. That's a different fanhood. But with that being said, yeah, we are a team. We're a family. You guys are a part of the show, and you're what makes this show fun for us to do. And we really look forward to it. Tony and I, it's kind of bittersweet for us because we have done the Hangover for the past couple of years with friends of the show that would call in, and I'm gonna mention some of them. We had Nick from Marietta. We had Ken from Jersey. We had the great Vito Manco from Jersey that would call in all the time. We'd love to hear you guys on the chat. But they were a part of our village. And one of the best moments we had last year was 2 days before Christmas. We were all upset about the Steelers losing to New Orleans. And then Ken from Jersey brought Ken Sr. on the show. And it was just, it was a magical show. And it made us forget about the game and just realize the humanity of Steeler Nation. And he talked about how he began, not from the Pittsburgh area, but became a Steeler fan just to oppose his brother back in the 70s. And it was just fantastic. And it was great for being right before Christmas because you really, just felt the pride of being a member of Steeler Nation and it feeling like family. So thank you, Russ, for saying that. I love it. And yeah, Kevin, you're right. The New Orleans game hurt last year, but if you're on that podcast, it felt a whole lot different. Tony will agree. It felt a whole lot different from minute number 1 to minute 130. Minute 90. Excuse me. We do have a question on the live chat. It is for Tony, and it's about. I have lost it here, but I remember the question, so I can't remember who it's from. It's, that one. Joe Green. How many Steelers wins did Tony predict for this season?
I predicted 10, which I think is a pretty standard prediction, so I'm not really going out on a limb. But I think that's going to be enough to win the division.
I know I went 11. Jeff's going 13, if I'm not mistaken. And Dave, where were you at?
I was also at 11. You and I were very close, even on our game-to-game picks. We were seeing eye to eye a lot of the time.
Okay, so I just opened up a can of worms
with the New Orleans game.
And I love it. That's what I love about you guys on BTSC. I agree. It broke my heart too. But we did get hosed. But if there's any silver lining. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Joe Hayden got hosed. But I think New Orleans feels that they got hosed a whole lot worse in the NFC Championship game. So, I mean, if that gives you any consolation, I don't know. But
the question was, should they have been hosting that game? Because if they don't win that game against the Steelers, that would have still been up in the air.
Ooh,
I can't remember how it played out the last week of the season.
Okay,
if it wouldn't have mattered, but
I was signing off about 7 minutes ago, and we
I know.
But with that being said, that's the great thing. I love this live chat. I love all of you. I appreciate it. Dave and Tony, thank you so much. Next time that we're speaking, it's going to be a real hangover. It is going to be either a really glorious hangover because of a Steeler preseason win, and I don't care. A win is a win. I love preseason wins. I feel good about them. That shows that they're practicing winning. If they lose, then there's stuff to build upon. That's fine. But we still will have a game to talk about, and we have been wanting a game for a long, long time, since December 30th, and it's back, baby. So with that being said, for Behind the Steel Curtain, for my good friend Dave Schofield and my other good friend Tony Defeo, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis. You, my friends, have just been hungover. Good night.